Am I the a-hole for asking an annoying pest of a waiter to leave us alone during a serious conversation? My mom and I decided to have a heartfelt conversation while enjoying dinner at a local restaurant. We were discussing some deeply personal matters and needed a quiet, private environment. However, the entire experience got derailed due to a persistent and annoying waiter. At first, the waiter seemed friendly, which we appreciated. But as our conversation progressed, it was like they transformed into an annoying pest. They kept interrupting us, demanding our attention by asking how the food tasted, attempting to upsell us on various items, and hovering around our table. Their constant interruptions were becoming incredibly grating. At one point, I decided to take a stand. I politely, albeit firmly, asked the waiter not to come back to our table unless we explicitly signaled them. I explained that our conversation was important and that their persistent interruptions were disruptive. They seemed taken aback, but they did give us some space for a brief period. However, the waiter apparently complained to the manager about my request for some peace and quiet. The manager came over to our table to address the situation. While the manager was understanding, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being treated as the bad guy here. Am I the asshole for telling this annoying pest of a waiter to leave us alone during a serious conversation? Could I have handled this differently, or was my plea for some understanding and space reasonable considering the circumstances? Am I the a-hole for getting mad when I found out my wife gossiped about me? To get it out of the way, I have an above-average size dick. I'm not going to the Guinness records or anything, but every partner I've ever had remarks on it. In the past, this has also meant that every single one of them tells their friends, and that gossip gets around. This makes me extremely uncomfortable, to the point that I had to start telling anyone new, do not talk about my dick to your friends. They all agree, and then they all do it anyway. It is very frustrating. Until I met my now wife, who was totally respectful of the boundary. We have been together for 6 years and married for 3. No kids yet. You probably see where this is going. We were with some of her close girlfriends at a bar last night and I suggested we go to another pub, and her friend's semi-drunk response, "If Big Dick says we go, we go." Ashley froze up and I went cold. Turns out that she told all her close friends when we met, right after I told her not to. And now they use Big Dick or BD in their group chat to refer to me. Ashley says they only say it when I do something worthy of the name. I don't even know what that means and I don't want to. So I left them and went home. Ashley was apologetic at first but kind of thought it was funny that I figured it out, and only learned how angry I was after I literally walked out of the bar. She says I'm overreacting and that what she talks about with her friends is totally normal. I said I don't care how normal it is, that I can't trust her anymore. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my son he can't stay with me when I found out why his wife kicked him out? My daughter-in-law is pregnant with my first grandchild. She is suffering from placenta previa. She is on bed rest. It would be dangerous for her to have sex. So my asshole son decided that he should cheat. She found out and kicked him out of the house. He came to stay with us because she was having crazy pregnancy hormones. Every time he called her they would fight. After a couple of days we told him to go see if she calmed down. Her mom is staying with them so we weren't worried about her. My wife called her to check in on her and found out the truth. I'm very upset. When he got home from work I told him he needed to get out of my house. He wasn't someone I wanted to associate with at the moment and it would be best if he wasn't near me. My wife tried to say that I was being too hard on him. That I should just give them a chance to work things out. I can't even look at him. I don't want such a stupid boy in my house. My wife and I are still fighting about it but I am willing to die on this hill. Am I the a-hole for not moving out of the property my parents gave me so that my golden child sister, her husband and kid could move in? My 34F sister, 31F, was the first among 4 siblings to have a kid, 5F. My niece is incredibly spoiled by my sister, our parents and extended family, and my parents bend over backwards for my sister's requests, like canceling their anniversary trip because my sister asked to babysit while she goes on a girls' weekend. This spring, my boyfriend and rock in my life passed away. At the same time, I lost my job. I had a lot going on, and moved back to my hometown. My parents own a rural property they used to rent out. The property had been empty for a while and fairly run down. My parents invited me to stay there, rent-free, told me it was my home for as long as I needed. I invested a lot of my time and money, found a remote gig, into getting the house fixed up. I also made friends with Olya, a Ukrainian refugee with a young daughter. Olya was struggling and I invited her to stay with me for a couple of months while she gets back on her feet. I could use company as well. She was very thankful but hasn't made a firm response yet as she's trying to make things work independently. My parents had no issue with this. Until recent drama. My brother-in-law had been working for a shady company, which skirted regulations for profit. The law had caught up with the owner, who folded the company and left the country. I'll cut this short given the post-character limit. A few other things went down and my sister's family abruptly moved to her hometown, moving in with my parents. Almost immediately my parents and sister approached me to swap. I move in with our parents and sis and her family take my place. They said the house I lived in was too large for one person, and it'd be so much better for my niece to live on a beautiful property in nature. I didn't understand. My parents have 2 guest rooms, my sister/Bill and the kid have their own bedrooms. I sure didn't at 5. My Bill is still loaded from his old job and could easily get them a place, too. They are buying a flashy car. When I mentioned my work on the property, it was dismissed. When I reminded them about Olya, my parents were outraged I was still intent on helping someone else and their child and not my own sister and niece. They kept making out my sister's situation to be nearly as bad as Olya's. Eventually it came down to my parents saying you're living on our property, you'll do as we want. I said, well, you gave it to me and said this was my house as well, to be my home for as long as I need it. But if we want to talk in property terms and not family terms, evict me then. My parents are not evicting, but I receive daily calls and messages from them and extended family guilt-tripping me and calling me an off for not giving up the more comfortable space to my sister, who is in such a difficult situation, and has a little child. Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter to stop complaining about her life? She chose it. My daughter, Gina 38, left her husband, Dan 40, for a younger and more exciting man from her work. They broke up when she got hit with a condo levy she asked him to help pay for since he was living with her. He declined since he wasn't on the deed. He said he didn't mind paying rent but that maintenance was on the owner. They fought and that was that. She ended up having to sell the condo. It was too expensive for her loan but it was something she fought for in the divorce. That was 6 years ago and she finally burned through the money from the sale. We told her to buy something smaller in a different neighborhood but she insisted that she needed to live there so her kids' lives wouldn't be disrupted. In the meantime our son-in-law just remarried to a lovely girl, Madison 27-28. Our grandchildren like her and she is always very pleasant when we speak. She is pregnant and the kids are excited for a new sibling. My daughter is back living with us. All she does is work and complain. She has to work too much, she can't meet good men, this new woman stole her life, it never stops. My wife is always commiserating with her about how she is so hard done by. I just keep my mouth shut. Madison came by yesterday to pick up the kids. After she left my daughter went off again. She was driving a new car they got since her old car would be impractical for a family of 5 to drive around in. The kids ran out to see it and check out all the bells and whistles. Gina didn't even say hello. After Madison and the kids left she started whining again. Now about how she can't afford a new car. I couldn't help it. I told her that she made her choice to give up the life she had for something different and that choices have consequences. She literally ran crying to her room and I felt like shit. Her mom scolded me for being so harsh. I apologized for saying what I said and I honestly feel bad about it but I think she needs to stop complaining about her life since she chose it.